Dat zou normaal
moeten passen. Yep.
Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Magandang araw sa iyong lahat. Welcome po sa aking channel. Today I'm in a different setting. I'm outside. We are here in the park near to my house. And as I told you last time, I would do a review about new equipment that we bought. Normally I'm a Nikon user, and because I don't have a lot of experience with Canon, I asked my good friend Ivan to help me out. He's already 15 years that he has experience with Canon. Yep. He's a really DSLR user, so we will do a review today about the system camera, the M50 from Canon, and the DSLR, the 7D Mark II from Canon, and to see, also for you, to see that the quality of the pictures is almost the same or there is a big difference, and also to see if it's worth spending extra money to buy a DSLR or just to have a system camera. So we will make the same shots. We will both work in manual, so we have the same aperture, the same shutter speed, the same ISO, and let's check it out.
And one thing, you said ISO correctly. Okay. Everybody says it wrong, it's ISO. You said it perfectly, so it's okay.
If you're new to this channel, don't forget to click the subscribe button. That's the red button down the video. Don't forget also to click the notification bell to get updates when the new videos are uploaded.
Raw to the core. Oké, F22 gaan we niet in je F11. F22 gaan we niet fractie. Dat is op een honderdste. So the first difference that I see for the moment is that his shadows are a little bit darker than the 7D Mark II, but it may be possible because of the screen. So we will see in after production, we will see if it's still the same or not.
We're taking also pictures in RAW, because otherwise there will be a difference between the processing of the 7D Mark II and the M50, because they have different software. So that will be already a difference. So we will just take our pictures in RAW. It means that there is no...
So there is no saturation set, there is no sharpness, everything is default. So if we can open the Lightroom, everything will be the same. The parameters will also be the same as everything. So
it doesn't make any difference if you're taking it with this camera or this camera. In RAW, it's just the same settings.
Yeah. It's all in default, so it should be exactly the same.
So we took the lens from the M50 and we put it on the 7D Mark II just to have the identical lenses, to make sure that there is no difference between the lenses that Ivan is normally using and the ones that I'm using. So just to make sure that there is
there's no difference, because mine is a 17 to 15 to 55 millimeters, so it's a little bit different between the 80 millimeters that he has. So it's a little bit different. That's also why we put his lens on, and we will see if it's a difference. But I think it's almost the same. It's literally maybe a few centimeters, and that's about it, I think. So it's okay.
So we don't want to have any distraction with other settings or everything. That's why we will always use the same lenses, just to make sure that it's only the difference is the body of the camera, and the rest stays the same.
I have a problem with my horizons. That's always my problem. Always have a problem with the horizons. It always goes a little bit like that, a little bit crooked. If you see pictures of me taking pictures of the sea, for example, the sea always drops off to one side.
Okay.
Fortunately, I have Lightroom.
So we have the 50mm lens now. It's a 1.4, so they say it's really good glass. So let's see if the quality from the pictures is the same from the DSLR.
It should be.
And from the system.
From the system camera, we will see. I'm also curious about that, because that's the first thing for me also.
So I'm really excited to see if the 1,500 euro camera is doing a lot better than the 500 euro camera. So that's also why we want to do the tests, to show you if it's worth buying one or buying 3 of those. So
we will see.
So we are doing it now first on 1.4. It means that the lens is totally open, and then he's making it on f4.
Because when I used the 1.4 aperture, then I was close to my maximum shutter speed, so it was a little bit problematic. But now, when I put it on f4 aperture, it was a lot better.
1.6.
And you see the picture is a lot warmer. Also one explanation. This one, my 70-55, is an EFS mount, so it's only possible on a crop camera. The 50mm 1.4 is an EF mount, so you can use it on a full frame camera, on a system camera, and also on a crop camera. That's the difference.
So we changed to other lenses. We have a small lens now to test. That's a 70-200mm.
2.8.
2.8. So
L lens.
So it's also a really heavy lens. I'm not going to use that, but maybe there are people that want to take some pictures from animals or something like that. So that's one of the lenses that you need then. So we want to test also and take it in our review, so you can see that it's worth spending the money on the M50, or maybe buy a cheaper lens and start first with a DSLR. So we will see and we will check.
Dat zal allemaal moeten passen. Yep.
One of the things that I can immediately notice to do some focusing, I'm used to working with the DSLR. Okay, it's a Nikon, but it's a DSLR. The way of focusing with the DSLR, for me, it's more easy than working with the touchscreen. Maybe it's because I'm not used to working with the touchscreen yet, but for me it's handier to work with the DSLR, especially if you want to make some quick shots or you have to do some quick adjustments. For me, the DSLR is working more quickly for that. That's also one of the nice things. If you want to spend some money on the M50, that's why we can change lenses. We have the adapter. I will show it also when we are back in the house. It's easier to take it off there than here. But when you're buying the adapter for like 100 euro extra, you can use all the lenses from the Canon. Every lens that's existing for Canon is fitting then also on the M50. So if you want to start with photography and you don't know if it's something for you, you just buy the adapter. You can buy the lenses from Canon, what we did, not only for the M series but for all the series. And if you want to go to a DSLR later on, you can perfectly do it. You can keep all your lenses and that will also fit on your DSLR. So that's one of the things that that will be handy if you don't know if it's something for you to take photos, because a lot of people, they start with taking pictures and after a few months they don't like it anymore, and then it's laying there, and it's not nice if you're spending a lot of money on a decent camera and you're just putting it there to get some dust. That's not what it's for. If you buy a camera, better to use it. And as you see, I'm talking to you, but when the light is perfect, a photographer...
I'm just taking pictures.
If there is the light is ideal to take pictures, a person that has a camera with his hand, he will always take pictures. So that's also why I asked Ivan to help me out with this. He's, like I already told you, he's already experienced with Canon for 15 years, and he's taking also a lot of pictures for sports in really low light situations. So that's why he's the ideal person to help me out and to make a decent review for you. We will go now to the house to make some low light pictures because it's sunny outside. It's not ideal to go in high ISO resolutions because then we just have one white picture. So we will go to the house to take some low light pictures and to see the quality there. So we're back in the house, and as I just told you, that the adapter, I took it off of the camera now, so you can see this is the adapter. Okay, I put the covers on, so it's a little bit bigger than it's normally, but this is the adapter that you need to buy extra if you want to use all the Canon lenses. You can immediately see also that the camera is becoming really small. If you compare this to a DSLR, that's a big difference also in weight. So it's up to you to decide if you want to carry a big camera and that the quality, as we think, that will be better with the DSLR if the quality is more priority than the weight of the camera. But we will see that later when we put everything on the computer. So we took some settings, we already did some test shots, so we will compare also now. You can immediately see also we make it a little bit darker here in the house, so we can make a higher ISO value of the camera, because the settings that we had at the castle was ideal. The ISO was always on 100 because it was really sunny. Now here we have to crank up the ISO value because now it's darker, and mostly with cheaper camera you can see that when the ISO is going up that the quality is going down. So that's what we will test here now. So we're using the 18135 that I bought with the camera. This is a lens, it's a 3.5 5.6, so it's not really a sensitive lens for low light situations, but we will test it with the ISO. This is a lens that's still okay in price range, and it's also, you can go really wide if you want to have a landscape, and you can zoom in a little bit. It's not really a lot of telescopic zoom, but 135. We're using both a crop sensor. The 135mm, it's a crop sensor that we have. I have a 1.5, the DSLR is a 1.6, but you have to take the 135mm, so you have to multiply the 135mm with a 1.5 and with a 1.6, so you have quite a zoom for just a normal standard lens.
16,000 ISO.
So how did we take the pictures now? We took the minimum distance that the lens needs to be in focus. For this lens it was around 49 centimeters. So that's what we took, just to make sure that the settings are the same. 16.000.
En dat is dus 135mm. En de focus.
So we're trying some different settings now, so we can compare them on the computer. Now, what I can feel immediately is now the lens that we are using. It's on Ivan's DSLR. I took it off of the camera and the weight is enormous. There is a really big difference with or without a lens. So the lens that we are using is not a really pocket lens, so that will make your camera more heavy. I already put it on the scale, and the body, the adapter and the lens that we have, it was around 1 kilo 100 grams. So that's already heavy, but yeah, if you compare it with the DSLR from Nikon that I was using, it was about 1.7 kilo, so 1.1 kilo is a lot lighter, but it's still heavy if you want to use it to travel.
In these first two pictures, you can see that we are taking pictures from a castle in our neighborhood. The weather was perfect to take some outdoor pictures, and that's why we also use the lowest ISO possible, in this case ISO 100. The picture taken with the M50 is a bit overexposed, but it also happened with the 70 Mark II. Because the maximum shutter speed of 1/4000th of a second in the M50, the overexposure was unavoidable with this aperture. The 70 Mark II has a shutter speed of 1/8000th of a second and was just enough to not overexpose.
Once we used the bigger aperture, the overexposure was gone and you can clearly start to see the beautiful details in the upper windows. When taking pictures outdoor, it's not common to use open aperture as a 1.4, but more like 5.6 or even higher. We just did it to show you the shutter speed limitation in very bright light.
In the next set of pictures, we are using the 70-200mm 2.8. I consider this the best lens for taking pictures when you need some telezoom. This is an L lens, so it has the best glass you can find, but it isn't cheap, unfortunately. For this lens with image stabilization, you are paying €2,300 minimum. The sharpness with the two cameras is exactly the same, but the M50 is better when it comes to color reproduction. The 70 Mark II lacks a bit of color here, unfortunately. The pictures are coming straight out of the camera sensor without any editing whatsoever. When we are using the maximum zoom of 200mm, the sharpness is still the same with both cameras.
Let's check the pictures from inside with a higher ISO value.
These are of course ISO values you're never gonna use in normal environments, but we wanted to check if there was a difference in image noise. If you are of course a sports photographer and you need to take pictures indoors, then you need those high ISOs. We used the lens which was the least light sensitive, so we needed the higher ISO to get a decent shutter speed. At ISO 6400, both cameras showed the same image noise. The 7D scored a bit better in image sharpness. The color was also a little bit better with the 7D, but only a slight difference. But for a price that is 3 times cheaper than the 7D, the M50 still scores very well in sharpness and color reproduction. With ISO 16000 we started to see a lot of noise and the quality of the image was getting worse, but still the 7D had a better color reproduction than the M50, but there was not too much difference. When we increased the ISO to a dazzling 25600, the image quality was totally crap with both cameras. Nobody, but absolutely nobody, should be using this high ISO no matter what. You can try to improve the image quality when editing these pictures in, for example, Lightroom, by reducing the noise, but it comes with a side effect. You are also gonna lose sharpness and color, and of course it takes a lot of time to edit these pictures as well. When you take pictures in JPEG, of course you don't need to do this, but then we couldn't show this test of both cameras, because both cameras have different software and a different way of editing inside the camera. Of course, I'm gonna talk about the camera I've always used. First of all, I used the original Canon 7D, and when the 7D Mark II came out, of course, I changed to the 7D Mark II because it has, for me, as a sports photographer, it has a lot of advantages. For example, it has 10 frames per second if you need to take pictures of actions like volleyball, like soccer. You need a lot of frames because sometimes it all depends on one frame. And then, of course, the extreme sharp focus of the Canon 7D comes in place, and also the focus, because of the lens that I use, the 70-200 2.8 lens, has a very fast focus, and of course you also need that if you want to take action pictures. The 7D Mark II for me is the best thing, of course, for taking pictures, but also I saw the difference with the camera that Andy uses, the M50, and when it comes to picture quality, we can't see any difference. The sharpness is almost the same. Of course, when I also see the color representation, it's almost the same thing. So I don't see any difference. The camera, the M50, is a little bit cheaper, little bit cheaper than the 7D Mark II. A little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. Of course, Andy starts to correct me.
1/3 of the price.
1/3 of the price, just a little bit cheaper maybe. But for a sports photographer, the 7D Mark II is perfect. But if you're just someone who goes on holidays to take some shots from landscapes, from people moving around, stuff like that, the M50 is absolutely perfect for you. You don't have to buy an expensive camera to take these pictures because the quality of the pictures is also almost the same thing as you saw in the test results. If you're really serious about taking pictures as a sports photographer, then maybe you can move to the 7D Mark II, or even more expensive, the Canon 1DX, but then you have to buy, I think it's around 6,000 euros, so that's a little bit too much. For me, if I have to choose between the 7D Mark II and the M50, it's going to be the 7D, because of I take sports pictures, but otherwise I would choose the M50.
So we saw the test results, we analyzed the test results, Ivan and I, and we came to the conclusion that the M50, the ISO value, the ISO noise was still okay. The only thing that we noticed was the way of working with cameras that was different. Now, as a Nikon user before, I always worked with the DSLR. I also preferred to have a DSLR if you need to do some quick shots, if you want some quick focus. Now on the M50 there is an autofocus and it has tracking. Now that's working perfectly if the subject is not going too fast. This weekend I went bowling with the family and I tried to do the tracking, and sometimes the tracker didn't follow on the subject because we were moving too fast. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. What I'm thinking, if you're just a photographer for daily use, you just buy the M50. It's 1/3 of the price of the DSLR, the 7D Mark II. You will not be that disappointed. And what we also noticed is that the lenses make a big difference. So it's better that you spend less money on your body and buy the M50 and you're buying better lenses, the 1.8 or the 1.4 aperture. It's worth spending more money on the lenses than spending on the body. Now, one of the things that's also important, the M50 is a kind of new model. So the raw photos that you're taking, it's in CR3. The CR3 is a new file format. I'm still working with Lightroom 6. I bought that version. I don't have the rent version. And I cannot just import them in my Lightroom. I always have to do the DNG converter from Adobe. That's for free. But you need to do some extra steps before you can put it in Lightroom. So that's one of the things that is a little bit sad. But if you're renting it from Lightroom, you don't have any problems. And as you could see with the last two pictures that I took, the internal flash from the M50, that's a little bit disappointing. Now, I contacted already Canon about it and they say it's a Canon thing. Some DSLRs, if you're going to the cheaper models from the DSLR, it's also possible that the flash is not high enough on your body. So when you're using a little bit a longer lens, and that's what they say, a longer lens, but the 18-135 is not really a long lens, but for them it's already a longer lens. It gives you a shadow on your pictures. If you're using an external flash, you don't have that problem, but when you're using an internal flash, it will be disappointing on your picture. So that's also the reason better to buy a little bit more expensive lens, that you have a lower aperture, a bigger opening, so you have more light from the outside, so that you don't need to use your flash. So you will have extra advantage of that. So we have our final conclusion. I hope it was very informative for you. I hope you like this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. You can always share it on your social media. If you didn't subscribe yet, please don't forget to click the subscribe button down the video or on the round circle on the screen. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Paalam!
Maar we moeten ook zien voor dingen, hè.
Dus nou zitten we met deze.
Slow motion.
Ah! Dat we aan het babbelen zijn, ze weer geen enkele foto's erover, dus we staan nu misschien niet altijd constant op beeld. Dan horen ze toch ons. Dan horen ze toch ons stem.
Ik heb geen schrik van de camera, hè. In case you didn't notice. Ik kan even een foto pakken, wacht hè.
Ja.
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 Zie dat ik er scherp op sta? Hè?
Ja, maar hey, vlaamscherp. Ik zag het leven een beetje zwart in, man. Ik weet niet waarom. F0! Dat kan niet. F0.
Will be handy if you want, if you're not, if you